Yeah.
10:45 on News Talk 550 KTSA. With sweat pouring off their brows, our gang of four continues to churn over the big stories of the day and the week. How do you like that? I just made that up.
Nice.
All right, thank you. Nikki Young is here, Masarrat Ali, and Robert Fleming. Well, there's more and more places all the time where you can no longer smoke, and if SAHA, San Antonio Housing Authority, gets its way, it'll soon be impossible for Bowdoin to smoke in public housing. They want to roll this out over time. They say they've surveyed their tenants. People are for it. I say, look, these are public buildings. If you can't smoke in any other public building, which you can't, then I guess you can't smoke in these public buildings. Is there really any other side to this argument?
I am very adamant about that. There should be no smoking.
Are you a smoking Nazi?
I am a non-smoking. I am all
You're
about
a non-smoking Nazi?
I am a non-smoking Nazi.
So, like, you're one of these people that just everywhere you see it, you want to stamp it out. You're like Carrie Nation with an axe.
I have asthma, and it makes me crazy.
Yeah. All right.
You know,
have you ever ripped a cigarette out of somebody's mouth? And
yes.
delivered a lecture?
Oh, she looks pretty guilty over there.
I have.
Okay, all right. Now we know where we stand.
Yes, and I think if you are not in a position to afford public housing, why are you in a, to afford your own housing and you have to live in public housing, then why are you able to afford a pack of cigarettes which cost about $7 or $8?
You're singing to the choir there, baby. I mean, when I hear people moaning about their financial situation and, you know, they're having a smoke, I'm like, oh, it kind of reminds me of the Stewie Brian thing from Family Guy where, you know, Stewie lent Brian money. You got money for a fake mustache, but you don't have money to pay me. You got money for cigarettes, but you don't have money to feed your kids.
Drives me crazy. Like, it drives me crazy.
And if you're going to take government money to live someplace, you know what? Then you're going to have to make a choice. What's more important, the mokes or the apartment?
Indeed. I am all about that. Drive me crazy.
Now, Dr. Ali, I had people telling me, but Jack, it's their home. You can't have the government telling people what they can do in their own home.
Well, as Robert said, that is not their own home. If you're going to be taking subsidies from the government, then basically you're going to have to abide. Yeah, you're going to have to follow the law, or just don't live in there. If you want liberty, then perhaps go and find your own accommodation.
I had a lot of people also say to me, yeah, that's a great idea. When are they going to do something about the drugs? and how are you really going to enforce
it? You can't have cigarettes, but if you're cooking meth in the bathroom, not such a big deal.
I mean, if I go to my own house, for example, my wife says, you can't bring your shoes into my kitchen.
Right.
Because she calls it her kitchen, right?
Right.
And if I want my kitchen, then I'm going to have to do some cooking in there, right?
There's a price to pay.
So there is a price to pay. So if I want to eat the food in her kitchen, then I'm going to have to follow the law and not to take my shoes in there.
Right. All right. There you go.
Does that make sense?
Don't bring your shoes in the kitchen rule. We're going to call it from now on.
I love it.
It is interesting, though, how the notion of ownership has been so blurred that people were calling in saying that you're telling these homeowners what they can do in their own home, and my head is spinning, thinking homeowners.
Right, exactly.
No. Let's redefine that. Rewind, rethink, replay.
Now
You're not a homeowner.
to give them the home because they don't have one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are providing a home for you, which is a wonderful thing. Don't get me wrong, but you have to be respectful of the homeowners, who actually is the homeowner, their rules.
All right. This week in court, a restaurant owner pled guilty to the charge of hiring and knowingly employing illegal workers. People are saying, and have been saying for years, if you want to do something about illegal immigration, you can't just do it at the border, and you can't just punish these poor people that are, hey, look, they're just trying to make a living. They're just coming over here where the work is. You've got to punish the people who employ them, who exploit them, who hire them because they can get away with paying them less or no benefits or 90 hours a week or whatever. Is this the right thing to do? Should there be a lot more of these stories of business owners getting thrown in the pokey?
I've already had my say.
Well, you start. You're the restaurant owner in the room.
You know, as we talked about on Wednesday, in this case, this was clearly a conspiracy to commit this crime. It appears the owner had knowledge, and those that he employed in management, he directed as well, and they had knowledge.
Systematic.
Yes, it was very systematic. It was a systematic way.
So where you find it being done systematically?
I think this is just the same as any other systemic criminal enterprise.
Or receiving stolen property.
Whatever the criminal enterprise is, it should all be dealt with the same way. Most of these instances where it's, you know, gets by the employer. And as I said also on Wednesday, I don't have that issue. I have a great professional employers org who screens people and uses E-Verify. But I have seen papers that I will guarantee you came from government stock. That is to say, people in the Social Security office, people in the ICE office here or in Austin or in Houston are being bought off for the paper.
They found it.
Yeah, there, and so it puts the onus on me as a business owner now to become a professional document reader, a professional document verifier. I do lots of things really well, but that is not one of them.
You mentioned, and I should have seized on it when you said it Wednesday. I wanted to follow up a little bit. You use a company to do what?
They are a professional employers organization. It used to be called Staff Leasing.
Okay.
They and I are the co-employers. I stand first in terms of all law compliance. That is to say, if we were to do something along the lines of Sausalito, the professional employers org would not be found liable. I would indemnify them and I'd take full responsibility.
Okay.
So the onus is still on me to make sure that anybody that comes to work for me is well, what they do for me is they handle all the payroll. They handle all the submission of the 941 payroll taxes. They handle my workers' comp. They handle all my unemployment.
It's their job.
They handle the verifications of new hires.
And is that a costly thing for you, or is that a minor?
It costs me about 3.5% of my payroll. You know, so it's a real expense. But I sleep at night. I don't worry about, geez, you know, I got those two guys there, and I know their papers were a little shady, and is the INS going to come in here, and am I going to get fined? I sleep at night.
And Dr. Ali and Nikki, you're both employers as well. I mean, is it fair for we, the people, to expect you to be part of the enforcement mechanism by either using professional services or being vigilant, or when in doubt, don't hire the person? Is that fair? When you see a guy like you going to jail, does that seem fair to you?
No, it's not. You see, we have a business to run, and we can only do so much. I hire people, and I look for their social security card, and you know their immigration papers. Not the immigration paper. I ask them if they have a social security card and if they have a driving license, and that ought to do it. You know, you cannot put a lot of burden on us to go extra length to verify their, you know, immigration status and all to do detective work. No, that's going to increase my cost of doing business, the cost of hiring them. And so, yes, I will do certain minimal part, but I cannot be doing the job of the government.
Well, okay, but now wait a minute. If I purchase a stolen flat screen TV from a guy who's selling it up the street here from the back of his van, I am receiving stolen property. Am I supposed to say, you know, I can't do the government's job. It's the government's job to enforce the law and make sure that people don't break into homes and steal stuff. I mean, if you are hiring people who you should have known were illegal, then aren't you in fact part of the commission of that crime?
If I know that they are illegal, then of course I'm liable for it.
But what is your burden of knowing that they are illegal? How far are you supposed to go in knowing that? Like Robert is saying, look, I'll go so far as to hire a company that sleuths it out.
No, I don't think he hires only to because of his immigration concerns.
No, it's just one
he hires it because he doesn't want to deal with the payroll, accounting, and finance. And you know, I looked at that option as well. We have in-house accountant. We have in-house, you know, that has the cost. So you can choose to do business and not have the responsibility of hiring and firing people, paying payrolls and income and accounting, and that's part of the deal. But that is not the only concern. If this is 3.5% of the cost is just to make sure that the person is legal, I don't think.
No, I understand that. But what I'm saying is there an onus on you to? I mean, you can't just. I would imagine. I would guess, even with your many professional skills, you can't just look at a Social Security card and know whether or not it's real or forged.
No, I don't.
Okay. So, how much of a burden, Nikki? I'll ask you. Yeah. How much of a burden should I, the citizen, expect you to take on to not employ knowingly or semi-knowingly or ignorantly an illegal alien? Because if you do that, if you employ that person, ultimately you are furthering the chain of events that leads more people to come here illegally.
Right. If they provide the correct documentation, that's what you have to go by. I mean, who's to say that someone else who may not, I mean, you don't want to get into profiling, you know, because then you're going to get into a bigger situation. But it is on the owner's responsibility to make sure they have the paperwork that the U.S. requires, or what your company requires to hire someone. You know, I always ask for, you know, proof of residency, you know, the Social Security card, driver's license, etc., if they're not passport, you know. And so we make all those copies, but I can't go through to make sure that they're valid.
Right.
I mean,
So we're buying, I think we're accepting then Robert's standard, which is systematic, repeated, versus I made a good faith effort and I got duped.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if there's a pattern of hiring people, then that's the issue.
Then how much of what happened in Sausalito is going on?
I think that in some markets it's fairly prevalent.
Don't you think in some sectors of the San Antonio economy, there's a lot of
Yes.
Sausalito?
Oh, yeah.
And you want to know what? It's not really, I mean, yes, are there other restaurants out there? There probably are. But I think it's more prevalent in some of the construction industries and in some of the service industries.
So is it the right approach to make a lot of these raids and conduct a lot of these prosecutions? Is that the right approach?
Well, we knowingly know where the problem is, and we do not want to address it. You know, this is not something that you know, Homeland Security is trying to find the terrorist, and they're going to the airport and the bus station, and they're doing their job, and they can't find one. But if they want to find illegal people, everybody knows where they are. But we don't really want to address the problem.
Well, it's the dirty little secret, Doc. You know, the unallocated resources fund at Social Security stands at over $500 billion, which is money that's off the books that politicians get to spend. That's why the Republicans and the Democrats have never done anything for all this time. It's a free source of money.
Boy, this is a very cynical gang of four today, Nikki.
Yeah.
My goodness, we're corrupting Nikki Young here.
I know.
by the
I'm
minute.
like, wow.
She's not sure she wanted to come in today. We got more gang coming up right after the news. It's 10:57 on KTSA.
Look, I'm just staring.
I mean, it's